I mean, they really tested us. We had, you know, a lot of good times together, but I always felt like we were being watched and judged.
But then, you know, they kept making the offer sweeter, and they kept buying us dinner. So it seemed like, okay, well, you seem like nice enough people.
After releasing the independent live album, Remember Two Things, the Dave Matthews Band was paired with producer Steve Lillywhite. And the question became, could their electrifying performances be captured in the studio?
Lillywhite's really good at just telling a band in a non-threatening, non-kind of dictatorial manner, look, this is what we need to move it to.
While Lillywhite and the Dave Matthews Band worked on a debut record, RCA was faced with the daunting task of selling DMB's unique sound in a market then saturated by grunge rock.
One of the turning points of the band's career was a convention down in New Orleans, radio convention, where we had the band play in front of all their fans, and the band just tore the roof off that place, and everybody went home from that convention and said, this is the next big thing.
A major label, a new album, just as everything seemed to be going Matthews' way, tragedy again haunted his life and family.
Dave found out that his sister Anne had been killed in South Africa. Not only that, but she had been killed by her husband, who had then committed suicide.
Matthews is very private about the exact details of his sister's death. One of the only public acknowledgments of his loss came, fittingly enough, on stage during a performance on January 29th, 1994.
That's a country full of lots of violence and lots of hatred, but it's also full of lots of love and lots of good people. But I was there mourning the very recent murder of my sister. So this evening goes out to her and in her memory.
Matthews struggled on, and he and the band would release Under the Table and Dreaming at the end of 1994. The first single, What Would You Say, was as successful as it was unorthodox.
Even the record company themselves were a little flummoxed by the whole thing. There's a violin. There's no lead guitar in the song. Like, these are not things that you would typically associate with a song that would go top 40.
But What Would You Say did go top 40, along with two other singles, Ants Marching and the ballad Satellite. The Dave Matthews Band was not only picking up mainstream fans on the radio, they also kept reeling them in on the road, returning to their roots in a campaign of non-stop touring.
There's nothing more fun than to be jamming with the Dave Matthews Band with, 20, 30,000 people, and jamming with a violin and rocking the crowd, which is pretty awesome.
Striking while the iron was hot, the band collaborated again with Steve Lillywhite for a follow-up album. And the train kept rolling. Crash went multi-platinum. It also gave the Dave Matthews Band their biggest hit ever, the title song, Crash Into Me.
It became like a ubiquitous ballad, like no matter where you went, Crash Into Me was playing if you're at a prom, a wedding, a football game, like, in the backseat of your girlfriend's car, whatever. Like, it was the song.
When People in the News continues, an internet leak of a busted studio session. And Dave Matthews goes solo, sort of.
Welcome back to People in the News.
By the late 90s, the Dave Matthews Band was on top of the world. Multi-platinum records and sold-out arenas.
There's no way I could sit here and tell you that I could see three nights Giant Stadium sold out from the Wetlands. Absolutely not. I did believe in my heart that this thing was going to become special.
It's like, wow, we must be something now,
Lovely lady. In 1998, DMB released their third studio album, Before These Crowded Streets, a new CD, a slightly different approach.
For the most part, it was written in the studio. So it was not an awkward thing for the band, it was a very liberating thing.
After Crowded Streets and months on the road in support of the album, the Dave Matthews Band returned to Charlottesville. And they headed right back into the studio, back into another collaboration with Steve Lillywhite. But this time the tracks were slow to come together. After 6 months of frustration, they pulled out of the Lillywhite sessions.
We all felt it. It was a real sort of a lack of direction and the feeling that it was just never going to end.
The original intention was to put a pause on the Lillywhite sessions and come back to them after the tour.
So DMB looked for a new direction and found pop producer Glenn Ballard.
He and Dave got together and wrote some songs up and wrote all the music and the charts up and stuff, which that's something that we'd never really done before.
While recording what would become the album Every Day with Ballard, the earlier tracks from the Lillywhite sessions found their way onto the internet.
Somebody in their camp, no one knows who to this day, leaked what would be known as the Summer So Far or the Lillywhite sessions.
With fans thinking the Lillywhite sessions were a preview of Every Day, that album's unabashed pop musings came as a complete surprise.
I felt that they allowed Every Day, which is an amazing record and has amazing songs on it, to be unfairly judged.
The leak also caused concern about DMB's lenient taping policy and the very community that helped rocket the band out of obscurity. The band and RCA were worried that the internet may have made DMB too accessible.
Down the first aisle?
But despite it all, Matthews and the band stayed true to their policy of allowing fans to freely record their shows.
I mean, there's lots of bad notes I've sung and bad notes I've played that are out there, and I guess that could be an inspiration for people to say, I don't want anyone to tape what we're doing. But I find it harder to understand that.
And taping has come a long way from the handheld recordings that sprouted among those early fans in Charlottesville. Today, DMB loyalists can spend thousands of dollars on high-tech audio equipment, digital equipment that allows them to post shows onto the internet within hours of the final note. With one of the most dedicated fan bases in music and his career at an all-time high, Dave Matthews hit a personal high in 2000 when he married longtime girlfriend Ashley Harper. And not long after his nuptials, Matthews also became a father of twins.
Well, my kids can be a handful. My surprise is how great they think I am. My daughters really think I'm the bee's bonnet.
Family, fame, and fortune. In 2002, Entertainment Weekly ranked Dave Matthews at number 34 on its list of the 51 most powerful entertainers. But celebrity hasn't swayed Matthews too far from his Quaker upbringing. He and his band have long given back, donating tens of thousands of dollars to charities in Charlottesville and beyond through their Bama Foundation.
My sense is that there was a real devotion to philanthropy and making the world a better place, a sense that this was part of a family mission. And I think Dave grew up with that.
Charitable and ever-changing. Matthews is now branching out yet again. This time he's solo and showing a slightly darker side with his new CD, Some Devil.
I cannot wait for people to hear this record.
So that I can feel the rain.
I think that it's going to shock a lot of people that Dave had this much music in him.
Music enough, it seems, for both solo projects and the Dave Matthews Band. Just a day after Some Devil was released, Dave was back with the band at a huge benefit concert in New York Central Park.
It sometimes takes walking away from what you have to see clearly what you have. But it's lucky for me that I could walk away but not be leaving.
From bar band to the heights of the music world. So much, so fast for Dave Matthews and DMB. But where do they go from here?
Lights down, you have been down.
I cannot imagine David not being involved in music. You know, 10, 20 years from now, they're still going to be putting out records, they're still going to be touring, they're still going to be selling out their shows. I I don't think that there's any chance that the band is going to stop being, you know, a huge success.
I can't think of very many bands that we've seen develop in the last decade get their induction into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. I know for a fact that this band will be one of those bands.
What would you say?
Dave Matthews' solo CD, Some Devil, debuted at #2 on the Billboard chart, selling nearly 500,000 copies. That's it for this edition of People in the News.